Welcome to Hex Creek Paints. My name is Sean and welcome to my madness. So for today I thought I would paint up a few of my Psykers for my 13th Fenrisian Guard. I'll get more into who they are in later videos, but for now, they're just my basic Psyker unit. To start off for my base coat, I'm going to be using Unholy Knight mixed with Amsterdam's black acrylic ink. Over time I'm going to start adding a little bit of blue, specifically Cantor blue, to the mix and start to build up a purple to blue highlight. Once I started adding the blue, I realized that I had made the color way too bright. So to counteract that, unfortunately I didn't have the video footage for it, but all I did was I heavily watered down just pure Unholy Knight and sort of used it as a glaze or a wash to muddle down the blue and put the vibrancy of the purple back in the recesses. For his sash and the trim on the uniform and cloak, I'm going to be doing a greenish yellow. I start off with just pure Caliban green, and then I'm going to start adding a little bit of Avalon Sunset to each and every subsequent layer. So now I'm starting on all my leather parts. And this is going to be just the pouches, the holster for the last pistols, and I'm going to be lazy about it and just do the handle on the staff the same color. It's going to be base coat of leather brown by Vallejo, and then I'm going to start mixing in a little bit of Xandri dust. And for the final highlight, I'm going to take the same mixture of leather brown and Xandri dust and add in a little Vallejo ivory to make it pop a bit. So I don't consider myself the best painter, but to try and get a little bit of a more worn leather look, what I'm doing with the highlights is I'm going to be doing kind of a hatch marks on the edges to kind of show a little bit of wear and tear. I'm going to be definitely focusing on all the creases or spots that get a lot of hand use, like the tops of the like the tops of the pouches, as well as spots on the holster that you would be grabbing more to get at the handgun. Now you will also see that on one of my Psykers I do attempt to just put one of the boots in brown. I like to think that I plan my models out a bit well, but there's always those spur of the moment spots where you want to try something new. I didn't actually care for the look of it. I thought it would just look too muddled. So now we're getting into the silvers and the shinier aspects. Once again, all I'm using is Vallejo aluminum mixed with my favorite acrylic ink. And you'll notice that on the staves, I kind of leave the Aquila and the eye separate, because at first I wanted to do them the kind of goldish color. But later on, I kind of changed that idea because I didn't want to bring out more colors than need be. We're getting into the flesh tone. What I used was my basic Bugman's Glow, except for I added a little bit of Vallejo Sky Gray to try and muddle down the redness of the flesh tone while still getting a proper coverage. As I start to layer this, I'm going to shift over from the Bugman's Glow to Cadian Flesh Tone and mix that with a very, very tiny amount of Sky Gray, and then gradually build up the Sky Gray, I think in 2 or 3 layers. At the very end, I take my Bugman's Glow, just pure Bugman's Glow, and glaze over the whole area to kind of blend everything together and give that nice darker, that grayer complexion for my Psykers. want to say right here is, bless the tiny palette of the thumb. Alright, now we're getting into the black colors. So, I know in my first video I had said that I tend to get kind of lazy with the black, but this time I'm going to go a little bit further, especially on the gloves, since for most of the models, the gloves are part of the focal point and closer to the face than not. I'm going to start out with the base coat of just Vallejo Black. I like that one just because it's more matte than the Games Workshop Abaddon Black. I find it a little bit too glossy for my liking. From there, I'm going to add the Skaven Blight Dinge, and then add in just a tad bit of the Sky Gray from the Flesh Tone to brighten it up a bit more on the outermost highlights. So in the theme of messing up, I'm going back over a bunch of the silver, and the reason being, as I said before, I didn't want too many colors on the palette. The more colors, the more eyesore. It looks more of an eyesore in my opinion. So I changed up and started to do the Aquila and the center of the eyes in the same silver as the rest of the model. And I even go back over the headgear a bit. But even then, the headgear, I didn't quite like how it was coming out because the flesh tone had ridden up upon the tendrils and the little wires that protrude from the device on their head. So I ended up going over that with black and then retouching it up once again with a brighter silver. So to highlight the silver areas, all I'm using is base Vallejo aluminum. I think that is one of the best silverish colors that I have ever used. So it's pretty much my staple for everything bright silver. shields, I'm just using Waystone Green from Citadel's technical range. For the little parchment, I'm going to be using Xandri Dust as the base, and I'm going to mix in a little bit of Vallejo's Ivory. This is to build up the brightness, and then I'm going to be using a felt-tipped pen to do the little writing on it. So for the red of the Purity Seal as well as the last pistol, what I'm going to do is my favorite mixture of Mephiston Red by Games Workshop mixed with a little bit of my favorite black acrylic ink. I'm going to then just add in a little bit more red. I'm going to then just add in a little bit more red every subsequent layer to build up the vibrancy of the Mephiston Red. The last part of the last pistol is just cleaning up and adding some miscellaneous details into the last pistol. And now for the main feature of these models. Since they're in a position where they look like they're giving off their energy blast, I thought I would accentuate that and make that the focal points. So I'm going to be using Calidor Sky Blue and mixing in a little bit of cold white into every single layer after that to make it pop. So now we're getting into the final parts of the model of the basing. I'm going to be using my standard mix of sand and cork. And because some of the model is popped up, I'm going to be shoving a little bit of that cork underneath the boot just to make it seem like he's standing on top of it a bit. After I get the sand on there, I'm going to just paint the whole base black and try and water it down so that it gets into every little crevice and detail of the sand and cork mixture. From there, I'm going to be using Mechanicus Standard Gray. Then I'm going to do a black wash. The wash I use is non-oil. And I'm going to start highlighting it by mixing in a little bit of the cold white into the Mechanicus Standard Gray. I'm going to finish off the base by using a little Valhallan Blizzard and using the brush, a kind of damp brush, so that it flows off better so it looks like the snow has just started. model is complete in my eyes unless I paint the rims of it black. And here is a finished product of my Psykers. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.